But that added a lot when she passed away, very unexpectedly. It also added a lot of pressure to me with this film because, she wasn't going to do more interviews. She wasn't going to make any more music. So suddenly what I chose to to include or not include in the film, like how she was depicted, what's music, all those things had even more weight.
Today on the show, we are celebrating the many lives of Q Lazzarus. You most likely heard her biggest hit single, Goodbye Horses. It was all over the radio, featured in a famous dance scene in the film Silence of the Lambs, and throughout time just showed up in so many different places. I know it from Grand Theft Auto 4, been in a later Jay and Silent Bob movie. She was even performing in the Oscar-winning film Philadelphia with Tom Hanks. Then shortly after, she just disappeared, and it was a huge mystery of what happened to Q. Some people thought she was dead, but today we're talking with Eva, somebody who found her, a documentary filmmaker and a DJ who had a deep connection to Q's music earlier in her life. It's absolutely incredible how she discovered her, as Q randomly ended up being her cab driver while she was in New York. And after meeting each other, Q was inspired to finally tell her whole story, come out of the shadows, and wow, it's absolutely riveting. It's sad, it's beautiful, it's everything in between, and this is a must-see documentary. But right now, in our talk, you're going to get some layers around the documentary as we talk to Eva right now. Awesome. Really excited to meet you, Ava. Yeah, just watched that your documentary yesterday and I was completely blown away. And just one thing that actually blew me away was the way you met Q Lazarus.
Hmm.
It's just such like when you explain your life of her music being a part of your life, it's
Hmm.
just so many synchronicities coming together. It
Hmm.
almost seems like this was meant to be in a way. And I
Hmm.
wanted to ask, like, you had uh that conversation in the car with her about music and seeing live shows. When you
Hmm.
asked about Q Lazarus, were you thinking I'm talking to her, or was that just
Hmm.
something you spit out like just because you love that artist type thing?
Um, no, I was trying to see how she would react because I had a strong suspicion by that point that it could be her. Um, which was sort of there were a few clues. One is, my driver was an African American woman in her late 50s, which is sort of her demographic. Um, she I knew she had been a taxi driver in the 80s and had picked up Jonathan Demme in her yellow cab and he had heard her music and that's put in his movies. So it wasn't inconceivable that she was driving cars again,
Hmm.
that she was back to doing that. And she had a CD collection. She was playing Neil Young's Harvest, but she had a whole CD collection there. And, so that also told me, okay, this is someone who cares about music. She's not just listening to the radio the way a lot of times, drivers are.
Hmm.
And, but maybe the biggest clue was her GPS wasn't working. And I had read an article earlier that year, this is 2019, in Dazed and Confused, where someone went to look for her. They said, oh, her real name was Diane Lucky. And they said, oh, there's a Diane Lucky living in Staten Island. And they went to the address listed and knocked on the door. And a man came out and said, she doesn't live here. I don't know who that is. And that was sort of the extent of the article. That man wound up being Bob, her husband, but she didn't want to be found.
Hmm.
Um, so I'd read that article, and then I got into this car service she was driving a few months later, and her GPS wasn't working. And I was going from Brooklyn to Manhattan, and she went like completely the wrong way. And, wound up telling me, like, oh, sorry, that, thing is, I live in Staten Island. I don't know my way around here. Um, so, so that was a big clue right there, also. I was like, oh, Staten Island.
Hmm.
So yeah, so it was just there was a series of clues and we definitely both felt like our meeting was fated. Um, there was other things too. Like she usually drove at night, but that day she was driving during the day because she had a client who had booked her all day and he was in a meeting. So she's like,
Wow.
"Oh, I'm gonna pick up another passenger." I usually just take the subway during the day, but I was running really late, so I called a car.
Mhm.
And yeah, and she also in the film she talks about a dream that she had, um, sort of right after meeting me in where she was performing with the band, and I was there, and so that was a big sort of sign to her.
Wow.
So at the end when we met, I gave her my number, and she called me the next morning, and we met for lunch, and sort of then decided to make the film.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
yeah, so many layers of synchronicities too. And
Hmm.
right now I'm actually doing this exercise with a group of people. It's called the
Uh-huh.
Artist Way, and it's
Hmm.
like a 12-week course, and
Hmm.
you do it with like a bunch of creatives. And one thing it says at the beginning of the book, like when you kind of find your path, as an artist, all these synchronicities start happening. And I don't know if I'm going too deep right now with the people listening, but
Yeah.
me and the other people in this course, we're having these spooky moments. And then I'm watching your film, and I'm like, oh my God, like it's just crazy how sometimes like these things just seem like they're meant to be in a way.
Yeah.
And
You have to be open to them for them to happen. Yeah.
yeah, or
It's
maybe
like a
they're
portal. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Or maybe they're always there and you don't see them unless you're really like
Hmm.
paying attention. But
Hmm.
yeah, another thing I thought was so charming was like her later on in the documentary telling a story about her being a bus driver, and
Hmm.
the people who were on the bus saw the movie Philadelphia, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's your twin." But her mind was like, "I'm not going to blow my cover. I do not want to be seen." But when she
Hmm.
met you, obviously having that dream probably inspired it,
Hmm.
but she had that feeling. She's like, "I need to tell this person
Hmm.
that I'm her." And at that
Hmm.
moment, did she know you were a filmmaker at all, or was that
When
something?
I got in her car, no.
No, wow, okay, well,
No, no,
that's
no. Not until we met up.
and how was
I,
like? Oh yeah, sorry to cut you off. Yeah.
oh no, there was something funny that happened. I screened the film in Philadelphia in January, and um, during the Q&A session, a gentleman raised his hand and said, um, I used to drive buses with Q,
Oh wow.
and that story that she tells in the film about the bus drivers being like, oh, one of the bus drivers asking her if she's a singer. He's like, that was me. I'm the one who asked her that. He said, I can't, he was very, kind of shocked that that story was in the movie, her that
Mm,
she told the story in the movie.
wow.
And he said, I knew she was an amazing woman, but I had no idea she'd lived through all this, because she totally kept her past a secret from them, you
Yeah,
know.
definitely. And I thought it was cool, like also a bit of hearing from her son as well,
Hmm.
um, of hearing his mom's song in the video game. And I used to play that video game too, and it would like
Oh,
put like
really?
Goodbye Horses on repeat. It was Grand Theft
Uh,
Auto 4, I believe.
uh,
And I even like remember hearing that song once in a while on the radio back in the
mhm,
day, but it's interesting how it just keeps having this life cycle, and like to the point where
yeah.
you guys kind of dug into it and kind of went a little deeper in realizing
Hmm.
like who's publishing this. And one
Hmm.
question I wanted to ask is like it didn't really have a conclusion in the documentary,
Hmm.
if you guys
Hmm.
got to the bottom of that, or did you
Hmm.
continue to pursue and figure out publishing?
So again, like she was gonna try and um see if she could get some royalties or rights back for that song. And she was talking to like volunteer lawyers for the arts. COVID kind of derailed all of that.
Yeah.
But her son, who's running the estate, is sort of looking into it again. What is clear though is, the soundtrack that's out now on Sacred Bones Records, like for the first time all the royalties, and credits, and she's getting royalties and credits, or her family is, for her music, because that never happened up until the soundtrack was released, 2 weeks ago. Um, Except for the only person who ever gave her anything was Jonathan Demme, for using her music in his movies.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's just so interesting how like yeah, just they wouldn't even contact like the artist or anything as
I know.
these songs are getting blasted everywhere. But yeah, I hear so many crazy things about the music industry with that too. But like another beautiful thing too was almost it seemed like you were from the day you met, you were trying to make her dream come to life, like that literal dream she had of
Hmm.
performing. And it
Hmm.
seemed like that was supposed to be the intended ending of
Yeah.
this. And she
Yeah.
seemed very, I don't know, thankful for this journey. And do you want to talk about like some layers of
Mhm.
that of her
Mhm.
preparing to get back on stage?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think, when she met me, made her feel like, okay, I'm gonna admit to this person it's me. I'm gonna come out of, hiding or come out of, under being underground and, return to my music and tell my story. I think, it was also a timing thing. Like at this point, her son was a senior FIT. He was going to graduate from college. So she also felt, okay, I've raised my son. Why can't I go back to my own music? Why can't I think about myself again? So it was a timing thing, also realizing how much, because didn't have a computer, she wasn't on social media. She had no idea how much like the song had blown up during her 25-year absence. She had no idea how much speculation there was online as to what had happened to her, how many fans she had, because this song really has like a cult following.
Hmm.
And so, she really wanted to go back to her music. The film was going to end with her comeback concert. I tracked down her bandmates from London. Um, and I was going to play with the whole Lazarus part of her name. The structure of the film was going to be kind of like the rise, the fall, the
Ooh,
resurrection.
yeah.
Unfortunately, as you know, like that didn't happen. I mean, the film happened, her record coming out happened. I think her legacy will be there, is being sort of cemented.
Hmm.
But, tragically, she's not here to sort of enjoy this moment. And
Yeah.
but that added a lot when she passed away, very unexpectedly. It also added a lot of pressure to me with this film because, she wasn't going to do more interviews. She wasn't going to make any more music. So suddenly what I chose to put in, to include or not include in the film, like how she was depicted, what's music, all those things had even more weight.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and even as somebody who knew the single too, I didn't going into this movie, I didn't know the full story. So I watching this doc too, it got me like
mhm,
really emotional like by
mhm.
the end, seeing the ending too, because in my mind I was thinking, oh, it's gonna end with like this beautiful concert, and
Yeah.
tragically it didn't. But like I mentioned, it seemed like she was just so grateful at the end that you
Hmm.
took the time to capture this history. And
Hmm.
I feel like you did such a great job because I'm a new fan of all the tracks I
Hmm.
didn't hear. Like
Yeah,
she had some like amazing stuff that didn't
yeah.
get that radio play. And I think
Yeah.
what's awesome about this doc is like people are going to be able to find that. And then
Hmm.
you got like this history they can always go to and relive
Hmm.
and everything. And also,
Yeah.
with these segments too, I get a lot of like creatives like listening in, like whether they're actors themselves,
Hmm.
comedians, filmmakers, and I just
Hmm.
wonder if you got any maybe some general advice for somebody who has a big idea for a documentary and wants to take
Hmm.
that first step.
I mean, just start making the film. Luckily we're now at a in a time where you just need sort of a camera and a computer, and you can start filming and you can start editing. And with documentaries, the really expensive part is post, the many months of editing, the cleaning up the sound, the archival is extremely expensive. Like I'm still paying off the archival for my film.
Yeah.
But, you know, um, you can just go out and start filming. You don't have to pay your subjects, you don't have to pay for locations, you need a very small crew. I think just camera and sound and a
Hmm.
director. I think even though I wound up doing this a lot on this film because of COVID, um, I don't really recommend for the director to be shooting as well, because you really need to focus on the people that you're filming and your relationship with them and your dialogue with them, um, and also if you're filming in a sort of environment where there's a lot going on, you could be filming one thing and there could be something 10 times more interesting happening behind you and you wouldn't know that, you know? So
Yeah,
as
definitely.
as a filmmaker, you really need to be sort of thinking every second about like, okay, what am I going to film right now? And sort of directing the crew. Um, but yeah, just do it. Like unlike fiction, unlike scripted stuff where you need, tons of actors and production design and wardrobe and, so many things, a big crew, a lot of money. Like this is something you can actually do. You just need an interesting subject, you know?
Hmm. Yeah,
So it's a very democratic medium,
yeah,
or
definitely.
a very democratic genre, I guess, in the
Hmm.
sense that, it's like
Yeah.
journalism, but audio and visual. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such solid advice, and thank you for that. And
Of course.
yeah, unfortunately, we ran out of time, but I
Mhm.
want to thank you for your time and for making this
Thank you,
film.
Sean.
Like I mentioned, I'm a new fan of Q Lazarus, and I'm excited to take a deeper dive into her music and
Mhm.
everything. And as the film plays, and if it gets released like
Mhm.
different VODs and stuff, we'll be sure
Mhm.
to share it on
Mhm.
our end and everything because we just want people to see this. But
Mhm.
yeah, thank you so much, and
Thank you, Sean.
thanks to John in the background. Appreciate you guys and hope you have a great day. Take care.
You too.
Before I do my usual outro, I want to share a song with you guys. We mentioned Eva used all this music in the film that has never been released. And right now you can find all this music on Q Lazarus's official Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you stream stuff. But it is the soundtrack to this film, Goodbye Horses, The Many Lives of Q Lazarus. What led you here might just be the single, Goodbye Horses, the only one that was on the radio, but holy shit does she have some amazing tracks. And around seeing this film, I really recommend you just playing this album. And I'm going to take a little snippet of one of my many favorites on this album and share it with you right now. This one's called Fool's Life.
When I was young, I had everything, I abused it. Everything I ever touched, I used it. Backwards, forwards, turn upside down, I needed it. It holds me up.
hope you enjoyed that preview of some of Q's music. And with this documentary, in the next few weeks, it's having some theatrical runs in a lot of major cities. Next week, on March the 19th, it's actually in my city of Toronto at the Review Cinema. All my local friends can check that out. And yeah, I can't say enough. This was just an amazing film, and it made me a Q Lazzarus fan. And speaking of people I'm a fan of, I can't go without thanking all you legends on the Patreon page. First up, to the Queen Ola Mazuka of Sonic Fold. Another huge thanks to Amanda McKnight of the Vamp X13 YouTube channel. Definitely check that out if you're into comic books, video games, movies, and all things nerdy. Big thank yous all around to the wonderful Jenny Potter, the legend Devin McBride, back-to-back double impacts, and #1 gent Alan Kent, and bigwig Alan Briggs, and last but not least, Francis Coffer, aka my mom. We want to thank you at the end of this show and actually get these episodes early, raw, uncut, right when I'm done the Zoom call. I just post them. You can go to patreon.com/the creative imbalance. It's only $4 a month, and beyond having my thanks, you can just go to bed at night and sleep soundly, knowing you're a badass motherfucker who supports raw, uncut, independent media. And nobody can take that away from you. You hear me? And with that being said, we got so many episodes around the corner. I can't wait to share these with you all, and I'll catch you next time. Mwah.